Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trey Strelko. Welcome into the Sons of UCF Live. Now, quoting Night fan Adam, let's bring in a couple of guys who are somewhere in between Adam and Mike. Hi, guys.
Happy anniversary, gents. 43 years ago today, UCF's first ever football game took place. Where were you, Mike?
I was not even in the womb yet. So my birthday was in 2 weeks. I'll be 42. So it's a year before I was born.
UCF won that game.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to have to apologize in advance. If you see me not looking at the screen or paying attention to you guys, Aaron Judge is almost about to hit number 61. I got it right here in front of me. So if I'm not looking or paying attention, that's what I'm doing.
That would also be something you might say every week.
Yeah, the weeks that I'm here.
Oh, you know what, Trace? Already we're doing this?
Trace is bullying me.
Trace is bullying us.
Now, some context there. That's your daughter who
it is
cheated in dice game at tailgating. So, in fairness,
I didn't see the rules.
Called her on it.
I didn't see the rules.
A good tailgate, though. It was great meeting so many Knights fans in Boca Raton.
Yeah, again, big thanks to Michael Hoffman, Gordon Partners. There was food, there was drink, there was games, there was KZ, there were free T-shirts, there was rain, but that didn't matter because we had a great time talking to a bunch of people, meeting a bunch of people for the first time. So those of you who came through, we appreciate you. We're getting messages. The Sons of UCF tailgate tour stops have come to an end. Maybe at the end of this. Well, we'll see at the end of the year how we're doing, but this was not a week after week gig. We've exhausted our tailgates, and I'm exhausted, frankly.
3 weeks in a row I've been meeting people. Going back to week 1 in Fort Lauderdale down here, I've been all over the place. Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, Boca. I'm still going to do a couple more stops. I think I'm going to hit up West Palm Beach at some point. I'm going to be in Tampa for the Cal game, so I'm still traveling the state myself.
All right, Knights win that one, move to 2-1, 40-14 over FAU. Adam, what's your big takeaway? Something you carry into this weekend's game that you hope to see the Knights do against Georgia Tech at home?
I mean, the defense was what we thought they were, right? I mean, they shut FAU down after that. Those first two scores, 18 total yards in the second half, even playing without Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste. That was a stout defense. We're going to need that throughout the year as the offense may be inconsistent at times. So I take away that the D block, as they call themselves, was dominant as always.
How about the improvements on special teams? Colton Boomer coming in, hitting his first two field goals. Maybe that's something we can get used to again here, being good on special teams. We haven't seen that in a while.
Knights welcome in a 1-2 Georgia Tech team. DraftKings has the Knights 20-point favorites. That makes me nervous as a line, though.
I would be nervous if I was a Georgia Tech fan because they are awful. They've had a tough year. They're not putting much together. They got blanked by Ole Miss this past weekend. So bad that Lane Kiffin basically said, I just stopped throwing because I felt bad for the coach on the other sideline. You don't hear that often. It's a program kind of in a downward spiral. 20 may be a tough number because you never know how a team's going to react when they're sort of, kicked and they're down at this point. They could get up and fight or they could just roll over. So we'll see. But I would expect this to be hopefully a comfortable win for the Knights.
I mentioned it on our show this week. I'll be disappointed if we don't win by at least 20. I mean, this is a team, you mentioned it, all the numbers point in our favor. We're at home. Everything shows that we should blow these guys out. If we're struggling with this team going into the fourth quarter, is this a close game? That is going to have me worried for the rest of the year. If that's the case, we may lose 4 or 5 games this year.
Knights wearing black in this one. I saw the message from Devin Page. Devin, what's the forecast Saturday? Thunderstorm's going to roll in there right around game time. Mike, did you pick UCF in the pick? And by the way, a little credit to me. I'm carrying the Sons of UCF team so far. Leading
You're up
both
2
of you
games.
guys. And
You're up 2 games.
But more importantly, we're comfortably ahead of the Banneret bunch. So that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, those guys were not going to beat us. I mean, last year was a fluke, an aberration, whatever you call it. They had a good season, and I expect us to run away with it this year.
Speaking, segue, runaway. How about quarterback John Rice Plumlee on the ground? His flip into the end zone, that was a viral moment for the Knights. A spectacular play. Shades of KZ. We mentioned KZ at our tailgate party before the game. Pretty sweet run for Mr. Plumlee.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you get out of JRP, right? Like we've said on the show, the highs, and no pun intended on this one, are very, very high. And you see his athleticism. He's a supreme athlete. He's probably one of the best athletes on the field when he's on the field. So I think things like that are probably routine from his skill set standpoint. Obviously, you don't see a ton of flips and runs and somersaults, but that's what JRP brings. That's the added wrinkle he brings. Now, if you can only wrinkle a couple of spirals in there, would be all set.
I thought his passing was looking pretty good this past week. I mean, he hit a couple guys in stride. He had a drop touchdown that would have made his numbers look a lot better. So if you mix that in with his running ability, I think he's looking pretty decent so far.
AAC Offensive Player of the Week at Monday's media availability. I asked Coach Gus Malzahn, does it make him cringe a little bit when he sees some of Plumlee's runs?
The only time I cringe a little bit is when he tries to run people over, and so that's what he does, but, that one he ran the guy over, I told him, we just want to do that when it's for the game, or, a huge third down, fourth down deal. But no, that's what he does. I mean, he has zero fear, and he's got great courage, and it scared me a little bit when he went flying up and he did the somersault. That definitely got my attention. I hadn't seen that very many times. Question
is, how durable is he? He's taken some hits. There was that cheap shot on him as well. You put your quarterback out there running a lot. Can he make it through a 12-game season?
Can we just talk about Gus's humble brag really quickly there? Because I feel like that's his way of saying, see, I told you guys. I told you guys I had a great quarterback. I told you. I haven't seen too many people flip in the end zone. I don't know about you guys. That was a great humble brag. But yes, at some point, I know we have a mailbag question coming up about what we're going to do with his durability, averaging 17 runs a game. That's probably not sustainable. I think there's probably maybe some dialing down at some point because taking that many hits is probably not a good idea.
17 runs doesn't mean he's getting hit 17 times. And some of those you run out of bounds. Sometimes you slide. So he's going to take a couple of shots. As long as he doesn't get one to the head or any serious injuries, we'll be all right.
Knights are 2-1 now, 1/4 of the way in. I asked on my Twitter poll @SignPez, temperature check on these Knights. How you feeling about them? The winner in that one, they're going to be fine. Outpace is too soon to say or still stressing. I am in the too soon to say. South Carolina State was the first opponent, a step up with Louisville and Plumlee, and as well, the team didn't look good, and then a rebound against an overmatched FAU. Don't know how much we learn against Georgia Tech. You want to come out of that with a win, but SMU looms around the corner. Of course, Cincinnati ahead, so the heart of conference play just ahead. I think it's still too soon to say.
I concur, my friend. I mean, obviously we played really well against FAU. They came out with scripted plays. They ran the ball pretty well, and then it all fell apart. I don't know if we got better or if FAU just wasn't a stout football team. I think you saw some changes. You saw some things that give you hope, but our wins against South Carolina State and FAU, I don't know what to take away from those. So I'm still in the too soon to tell camp. I need to see a little bit better competition and see where we're at.
I think they're going to be fine, but it's still too soon to say. And I will be still stressing if they don't look good this week. So the answer is all of the above.
So you want the D, all of the above. Sometimes I don't offer that choice, make you choose something. It does frustrate people. So let us talk about the Knights at the quarter pole here with someone new covering the Knights on the beat. Chris Boyle covers them for the Daytona Beach News Journal. We welcome you into the Sons of UCF Live, Chris.
I welcome you in under the sea. How you guys doing?
What most Knights fans may not realize, that you now realize, is that during the media availabilities, they passed the mic around a little bit on the spot. I'm going to put you here. Was there a bit of a drop on the baton this week when you were handing off that mic?
Yeah, me and Hellwig had a little bit of a fumble, but other than that, I think it's been pretty smooth sailing so far. What's
your assessment? You're down there in Boca Raton with me. What do you think of the performance against FAU, and how would you have voted in this poll? Too soon to say? They're going to be fine, or maybe still a little stressing about the quality of this team?
I'm kind of where you are. I think between too soon to tell and they're going to be fine. I think my prediction at the start of the year was 10-2. Given the returning talent, given the schedule, how favorable it can be, I did think they would drop a couple games, whether it's in the conference specifically or one of the non-conference and then out of the conference games. It's just a matter of, your preference on who they were going to lose to. But I think overall they've kind of met my expectations for the most part. We knew Plumlee would be a bit raw. We knew that the offense would be, heavily run based, and for the most part it has been. And the defense has been very good when it's needed to be. Certainly they were really good against FAU in the second half, holding them to 18 yards of offense and essentially turning the tide in that game right when they needed it. The big drive certainly was that first and goal at the 1 and FAU coming away with nothing. And that could really be a season-defining moment. We'll see how it plays out. But to me, if they really go on a run here, I think you can kind of pivot, or you can circle that for sure and say that that's a moment that was pivotal to their season.
I'm going to steal a Trace Trelko special here, Chris. Grade John Rice Plumlee through 3 games. What grade would you give his performance?
I would go with a B. I mean, obviously, I think the second half and the fourth quarter of the game against Louisville was certainly the low point so far. But I thought against FAU, he played pretty well the whole night. He had the one turnover that he had. The interceptions. I've seen the comments, and these are really funny. I'm actually in my 1-year-old son's bedroom, so some of these things that are popping up, and I'm looking at.
They're not going to stop, Chris. Just so you know, they're going to keep
perfectly
going.
Fine. I'm happy for it. Bring it on. I love the creativity, but yeah, I think overall, I'd say B. He's been great as a runner, which we knew. I thought he was actually quite good as a passer against FAU. Made some good throws down the field. I think went through his progressions a lot better. Was not locking in on one target, was able to distribute the ball more effectively and make some reads that were able to spring big plays that might not have been there a week or two ago. So I think overall you're seeing growth, and that's really what you want, certainly what Gus Malzahn wants.
Chris, we're about 25% through the regular season now. What do you think is the identity of this football team so far?
Well, I think defensive toughness is certainly something. I think that they've been better defensively in the second level than I thought they'd be. With Jason Johnson's kind of taken the role on pretty well, and he's had to expand upon that role with Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste missing last week. Offensively, and again, it's kind of what we thought. It would be a lot of quarterback run, a lot of power zone read type stuff. I think that's going to be really the bread and butter. If they get push on a weekly basis, if they're able to move people up front, open up holes, that's where the points will come in. That's where the yards will start to add up. I mean, it doesn't feel like it. It just doesn't, like watching the games the way we have. It doesn't feel like they've had 2 games of over 600 yards of offense, but you'll go back and look at the stats and they have. So even when they haven't played pretty, they've certainly done enough to win football games. And I think that might be your identity.
Coach Malzahn spoke out in the preseason camp as well, spring ball, that he was going to treat Isaiah Bowser, running back Isaiah Bowser, like a pro, resting him during camp and not putting him through all of the rigors. Bowser talked about taking yoga in the offseason to be in better shape. What do you make of him through 3 games?
I think it's a measured thing as well. He's been very effective at the goal line. It's been a matter of use him when we need him, certainly. And to me, he's the tempo setter. I remember last year watching the game from afar, not being around the team, not covering the team, but I would certainly tune in and watch the games. And it felt like he kind of, as UCF went, they went with Bowser. Certainly the Boise State game comes to mind. The Florida game when he was back healthy. They're going to need him in the pivotal moments. They're going to need him in the big games, and they want him to be the workhorse at some point this season. And I think it's going to start to happen once we hit conference play.
Chris, what do you make of the offensive line play? Obviously, we talked about Bowser a second ago, right? And the offensive line plays a big role there. Obviously, some fans got a little bit nervous after the first couple of games. What are you seeing, and what do you make of how this O-line is coming together?
It's been uneven. It's been a little disappointing, I think, for the most part, just because there was a ton of experience in the interior, and they brought in 2 tackles that have played a ton of football elsewhere. Ryan Swoboda at Virginia, and then Tylen Grable at Jacksonville State. So I think there was probably a lot expected of that unit. The fact that they've played a ton of games collectively, maybe individually, but not so much together. And that part, the meshing, the communication is something that all the guys, certainly Sam Jackson and Lakahi Paole, have talked about. That communication, that meshing, that timing, that's all going to come together with the more they play together and the more reps they get together in games. So I think as the year goes on, I do expect it will get better. But yeah, I'd say out of the gate, it's been a little bit underwhelming.
Talking about Bowser's production and the offensive line, but what's been the biggest surprise so far for you this year?
I would say the biggest surprise is Javon Baker, how quickly he's been really the number one guy in that passing game. Now, Ryan O'Keefe missed some time with injury. Kobe Hudson's been gone the last 2 games, but Plumlee really likes throwing the football to Baker, and he's been very athletic, won a lot of one-on-one matchups, and seems to have embraced this much expanded role. He didn't play a ton at Alabama. He was there for 2 years, and made a handful of catches. He had a touchdown last season, but certainly not anywhere near this level of attention, this amount of targets. But I think he's really embraced this opportunity. They had the chance to be the number one guy, or certainly, a 1A guy to O'Keefe in this offense. And I think he's done very well. He's been one of their most impressive players to me so far through 3 games.
Took 2 games, but Coach Malzahn made a change in special teams, replacing seniors at punter and place kicker for a pair of freshmen, albeit the punter's a 24-year-old freshman. But any surprise there for you?
No, I think that the place kicking thing was overdue. I think that, but again, if we don't get a chance to really see how those practice reps go, and if Obarski is as prolific as it sounds like he's always been in practice, so you don't really get why it doesn't translate. The first kick this year, I'm willing to be a bit more lenient upon. It was at the end of the half. It was the last handful of seconds. The clock was running. One of those drills you work on in practice, but it doesn't necessarily happen a ton in game situation. And then he pushed it from over 40 yards, which his career long's 40. The miss against Louisville was the backbreaker. That was an absolutely easy kick, a kick that you have to have, and really a momentum swinging kick, because that was a drive that started with the penalty that took the touchdown away from Johnny Richardson. They go down the field. They still get into field goal range, and did not get anything out of that drive was crucial. And then they didn't score the rest of the night. So I think that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, unfortunately.
All right, we're 3 weeks into the season, right? We've seen Houston, who folks thought was the AAC sort of preseason champion. They've taken a loss. Cincinnati's taken a loss. You've seen UCF take a loss now. We've seen these teams play on the field. What do you think UCF's chances are of winning the American Conference now that we've seen play kick off and you've seen a bunch of these teams? Give me some odds of UCF winning the AAC this year.
I think the odds are all right. I wouldn't necessarily put them as the favorite off the top of my head. I do think, Cincinnati and Houston came in as the 2 odds-on favorites. SMU is going to be a really good barometer, I think. I think they were one of the dark horse teams coming into the year, given their offense, their quarterback, how explosive they were against UCF last year. So I think that's one of those games where if you're in the too soon to tell category, I think that's one of the games you really want to pay attention to is how they perform against SMU. That'll certainly kind of set the foundation and give you a good sense of how they're going to do the rest of the way. But the good news for UCF, a lot of those important games are at home. Cincinnati's at home. SMU is at home. They only have to make 2 out-of-state road trips this year, or 3 out-of-state road trips this year? Three. Yeah, they have to make 3 out-of-state road trips this year. And I think it sets up well for them. Most of their important games, like I mentioned, are at home. They will get a chance to play Cincinnati and get some revenge. I think they're obviously going to have an amped up crowd for that. So some of those factors that may have gone against them in past, is a lot of their struggles have been on the road in conference play in recent years. So that definitely gives me a little bit more confidence in saying they have a shot at doing it.
We mentioned some of the deficiencies of this team so far through the first 3 games. What do you want to see them improve on the most as the season goes into conference play?
I think the pass rush, and you saw glimpses of it. I think, we saw Montalvo against Louisville, I think, had a really strong game. Seliscars had big moments. I think I've been impressed with Lee Hunter out of the gate, in limited capacity and limited role, but I think that he could be a potential difference maker as an interior rusher alongside with Ricky Barber. So I think if they can get push, if they can get after some of these quarterbacks in this league, I think that'll certainly go a long way for them, being able to establish leads early and run the ball and kind of work the clock too. That's the way I think they want to do it. Win with defense, win with running the football, control the clock, and control the tempo of the game.
Earlier, you mentioned Alabama wide receiver transfer Javon Baker. How would you grade overall the transfers that have come in through the portal? To me, that also seems like a little bit of a mixed bag and still too early to tell.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think it's been kind of a wide range of outcomes between Hudson not being available for the last 2 weeks. Baker, I think, has been great. I think Johnson's been a really impactful guy. I think Walter Yates has done more than probably most of us would have thought coming from the D2 level. Kobe Perry's a good depth piece to have, and he's made a couple of decent plays on the back end. Overall, I think the transfers, they've been, I don't know if I'd have a full grade. It's more like an incomplete grade, but some of them certainly have graded very high to me. Like Baker, I think has been great. The tight end situation is another one I've been a little bit underwhelmed with. I thought Kamori Gamble would be a really impactful addition. They would use him more in the passing game, but he's kind of been second fiddle to Alec Holler, and then we've seen Zach Marsh-Wojan used a lot in run packages. So Gamble's a player I think that they want to see more of too as the year goes on.
UCF fans love a good controversy, Chris. This week's controversy was Terry Mohajir maybe referenced that he turned down a game to play a home-and-home with the University of Washington. Maybe he took a game with Florida, a 2-for-1 instead. I think we're all still unclear on that. But what are your overall thoughts on UCF turning down, at least not accepting right now, a 1-for-1 opportunity to play Washington?
That's a tough one. I think from a fan perspective, going to Seattle and having Washington come here would be a lot of fun. I think that'd be a marquee trip. A lot of, to have a chance to play them would be a great. Would be a 2 letters, 2 words. I'm still seeing you, buddy. No, I think the Washington trip, I think would have been certainly something for fans to be excited about. And I think these are the kinds of teams you should be trying to play at least once or twice a year. And with the 9 conference games in Big 12, that's going to make it a little more challenging to have exclusively Power 5 home and home contracts. You are going to want to have guaranteed home dates. You are going to want to have, premium opponents on that schedule. And Washington has kind of been an up and down program over the last decade or so. They've had really high moments. They made the playoff not that long ago as Pac-12 champion. They've also had coaching changes and kind of been down in the dumps. So you kind of have to be a little bit strategic, knowing which programs to set up and to pick, and what's going to make sense geographically, what's going to make the most sense for maybe winning a recruiting battle here or there, and also with the finances. I think those are really important questions and important factors to take into account, as well as just who we're playing and who UCF's playing and who what kind of game we think it might be or what sort of trip would be from the fan perspective.
You do a great job covering the recruiting aspect of UCF too. What are the biggest needs we have going into the 2023 season, and who are some of the bigger targets we're going after?
So I'd say the biggest need right now, I think wide receiver is something that's being stressed. The defensive backs, I think, has been another target that's been talked to me a lot. I think UCF is looking for length. They want a cornerback and a safety. They're still looking for both of those. I think from a target perspective, I think they do still want to try to flip J.C. Hart away from Auburn when it comes to that. A player to keep an eye on is a kid out of Georgia named Tyler Scott, who's really come to the forefront. Auburn's been after him. Georgia Tech, I believe, has been after him. A couple other programs, and he's a kid that's committed to Arkansas State right now. But from what I understand, he's at the top or very near the top of the board as far as the cornerback position is concerned for UCF. Wide receiver will have more clarity on Saturday. Dadron Zipper is a big target. He's committing. He'll either choose between, from what I gather, UCF, Pittsburgh, or BYU. I think that's going to be one of those 3 programs, even though he officially visited USF just a couple weekends, this past weekend or the weekend before that. And then I think the offensive line, I think, is another long-term need. They do have 2 commits in this class, Jonathan Klein, who will be here this weekend, and then Jamal Merriweather, the tackle out of Brunswick. But I think they do want to get long-term size and start to really bring in those Power 5 bodies to develop and make it long-term sustainably, rather than just using the portal to plug gaps, I think, for the offensive line. I think in the short term, you'll see a lot of that, but in the long term, you want to have, those Big 12 caliber athletes in the trenches on both sides of the ball.
And Coach Malzahn has said that, right? They're going to get theirs out of the portal, but he wants the right balance there. And it's probably too many guys that he's taken so far out of the portal for his own comfort level. Chris, what's been your favorite part of covering the Knights so far this season?
Well, it's been, for me, it's been a new challenge. I've been kind of looking for something different. And professionally, I've done high schools primarily for the last 9 years in Volusia, Flagler, and St. Johns counties. So it's been fun to have a new challenge to to compete, to be out there and have more than just me. I think it's nice to build a camaraderie with you, with Jason, with Brandon, with a lot of the guys I've read and respected over the years and gotten to know. So that's certainly part of the thing that I enjoy. And, I think interacting with a new fan base and getting kind of a feel for what what college football Twitter is about, which, is a wide variety of things between. I've started following more accounts in the last few days than I probably had in the last few months, like the Sickos Committee account and the Reddit account. Some of those are just, they make me laugh. And I've really gotten involved in a bit and trying to see more of what UCF Twitter mafia is all about. And I think I've got a much better pulse of that after the FAU game.
Well, we thank you for being a good sport with some of our shenanigans that have scrolled across the screen. Give
Your
Robert
shenanigans are cheeky
letters,
and fun.
Yeah, Robert, at 2 letters, 2 words. Give him a follow. He's a good guy. He'll razz you a bit, but he'll give you some good information as well. So, Chris, thanks so much for being with us on Sons of UCF Live, and I will see you up in the Bounce House press box on Saturday.
Sounds good. Thank you guys for having me, and keep on with the tailgate. I really like the setup you guys have. I always respect a quality tailgate setup.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right. Good perspective. A new voice covering the Knights. Good to hear from Chris, and we welcome him to the beat. I like that he's got some good knowledge there of the high school recruits.
Yeah, I think, well, anytime, more coverage for UCF, the better, right? And particularly if he's got an ear to the ground in recruiting, understands the game really well. I mean, I think we're all fortunate that we're all, in this together as a fan base. And I think the more voices, the more folks who are following and giving content for UCF is a win for everybody. So welcome to the team, Chris. Stay away from Robert.
I thought he was great. Do we know, did he go to UCF or no?
I don't know that. Chris, if you're still watching, scroll it across the bottom of the screen. I'm not sure where.
Hold on. We can ask him. Chris, did you go to UCF?
Yeah, I am a Nicholson School of Communication grad, class of 2011.
There we go.
Oh, nice.
All right. Chris just hanging out in the green.
Okay. He's just hanging
just
out.
for a minute, I was answering a text, and then I was going to sign off my computer. But you caught me right at the right time. Yes, I'm a UCF grad, though I've been away from the program for about the last decade or so.
The interview that will never end. See you later, Chris.
Good job, Adam, for putting him on the spot, Mike, with the question. Let's go around the kingdom real quick before we bring in our next guest. Now, 25th ranked UCF volleyball. They're 8-0, one of the few schools left in the country undefeated. They swept some schools out in Kansas, including the University of Kansas Jayhawks. AAC Offensive Player of the Week, McKenna Melville. She's now got the all-time kills record in that win over Lipscomb. Previous record held by Renata Menchikova. 25 years ago, she set that record for kills. Knights now open conference play. They are on the road at Memphis on Friday night at 7 and Saturday at SMU. So Knights off to a big start. Men's soccer also ranked now 23rd in the country. They beat Temple on the road 4-0. They remain on the road Saturday at Memphis. And women's soccer, I don't know what to make of them so far. RPI middling, 2-2 draw at Texas. They led that one. Texas number 20. They let it get away late. Knights are now 2-4. They are off now until September 29th when they welcome in Cincinnati. So they're going to have to do pretty well in conference play with all the draws. So mentioned the Knights are 20-point favorites over Georgia Tech. A former Knight coach, Jeff Collins, leads the Yellow Jackets. Let's learn more about Saturday's opponent. Let's welcome in Rod McKenzie. He writes for GoJackets.com, part of 24/7 Sports, as well at GA Panther on Twitter. Rod, welcome into the Sons of UCF Live.
Hey, thanks for having me. I don't mind being outnumbered. I'm just ready to talk some football.
Well, let's get a sense of the scene in Atlanta with Georgia Tech. A lot of hot seats out there. Jeff Collins and perhaps former UCF athletic director Mr. Stansberry also on a hot seat.
Yeah, the natives are restless for sure, and they want something to happen right now. But the way it's playing out, if there's going to be a change, it may not happen until the bye week, which is 2 weeks away. So the word right now is patience, and we've heard a lot of things leading us to believe it is going to happen, but it's just a matter of when.
Well, why has this team struggled so far this year? If you had to kind of pinpoint a few things, what have been the challenges?
It's been really surprising because what I see in practice has not translated to the field in games. They opened up against Clemson. 14-10 in the third quarter. A overthrown pass was called interference, and that kept the drive going, and it led to Tech's number one tackler, Charlie Thomas, being thrown out of the game on a targeting call. And when he left the game, everything went south. And, of course, we all know Dabo doesn't like to run the score up, so he just kept the pressure on. But, the offensive line has one starter with any experience. You have at the guard positions, you have two guys that transferred from Alabama and Clemson. You have a freshman who only played a couple games at the end of last year, starting at center, and the other tackle is a redshirt freshman. So I think they've been able to move the ball, but when they get across the 50 and in situations where maybe they can put some points on the board, you have legal procedure penalties, that type of thing that's really stalled a lot of drives defensively. I think they have some players there. Keon White has, averaging 5 tackles a game. He has 3 sacks already this year. So they've been getting pressure on the quarterback, but the issue, and this may be a big issue in the game Saturday, is they haven't been disciplined and staying in their lanes. They preach, be disciplined. Don't try to do someone else's job. Just do your job. And this has really gotten them in trouble defensively. And if you watch film from that Ole Miss game, you'll see that, there was a lot of big holes because players got out of their gap when they were rushing the passer. So, it's a lot of them admitted that the up-tempo offense got the best of them last week against a good Ole Miss team. And we heard things like we weren't mentally ready, that type of thing. We came out flat, and you wonder why a team would come out flat, when you had such a big game as Ole Miss.
The schedule doesn't get much easier this week, going on the road, 20-point underdogs. What does Georgia Tech have to do to win this game this week? Can they win this game this week?
I'm not sure about winning, but I think they can make the game interesting. And I think what they have to do is learn from their mistakes last week, because you're going to see probably a lot of the same type offense that they saw last week, with the exception of the fact that you have a quarterback that can really run the ball. And Ole Miss, they didn't try to run the ball with their quarterback, and but they just have to. I think they have the players, and they just have to, understand that you can't take plays off. You have to get out there and play hard every play. And they're I think they go 3 deep at the defensive ends. They go 3 deep at the defensive tackles. So up front, I expect them to shuffle a lot of players in and out of the game to keep them fresh. They have 2 of the better linebackers in the league, and A. Sealy and Charlie Thomas. And if they can get some pressure up front, I mean, naturally, every game you hear coach say, yeah, we want to establish the run. And every coach on the other side says we need to shut down the run. So that's going to be the key. And, the first 3 games, the opponent has scored on the first 2 possessions before the defense was able to settle in and shut things down. So they have to make some stops on the first couple of series of this game.
Tell us a little bit more about quarterback Jeff Sims. How can he cause the Knights problems?
Well, first of all, he's a very athletic quarterback. He too is dangerous when he takes off. And last week, Ole Miss played that 3-4, and their linebackers were as fast as any linebacker group I've seen in a while, and they did not let Jeff get free. And they flushed him out of the pocket a lot. The offensive line really didn't give him a chance to set up in the pocket and find his receivers, and that's been an issue thus far this year. So hopefully with this week of practice, they were able to work some things out. And if he can get some time, he has a strong arm. I know Chip Long, the offensive coordinator, he likes to to, share the ball, move it around, short intermediate passes, and then if he feels the secondary is moving up, he'll go for the juggler and go for that long pass. But I think they just want to move the chains with that short passing game and get and possibly get the tight ends involved, because they really haven't been able to do that this year.
Rod, how do you expect this team to respond? Obviously, things are down right now, but they could obviously muster up and come in and put up a fight, or they could I guess fold over early, and we could all be watching home improvement shows. Where do you think this Georgia Tech team is going to be at right now?
The couple of the players, some of the leaders have taken over after what happened last Saturday, and they've really gotten the team together, talk to them and say, hey, you have to be positive out there. You can't be negative. We still have a long way to go in this season. We've only played 3 games, and one of those guys is a local guy down there, Zamari Walton, who he's been a starter there for 3 years. He lives about 45 minutes away from campus. I know he's going to be fired up because he's going to have a lot of family and friends there, and he's trying to rally his fellow defensive teammates to come out and play hard from the beginning and make those stops in the beginning. But it's all about leadership and keeping the team together. And if they can do that, maybe they can do some damage on Saturday.
I don't know if you're aware, but George O'Leary is throwing out the coin toss this week to start the game. There's some mixed reviews of him.
He might throw it, actually, Mike, to be fair.
Here in Orlando, I mean, a lot of people love him as maybe the best coach we've ever had, but a lot of people don't think so highly of him. What's the view of Coach O'Leary over at Georgia Tech?
He's been up here for some ceremonies at halftime, and everyone up here likes George. They like what he did when he took over, and he brought in Ralph Friedgen. They had a high-powered offense, and then eventually they get some defense going. But everyone thought highly of George. But he can be gruff. He had his son monitor everything we said on our board to make sure we were minding our P's and Q's. So, he was definitely aware of what was going on around him.
Wait, that happened there too? I thought that was just a UCF thing. He was a little gruff in Atlanta. I didn't know. You mentioned George O'Leary, known for defense. Despite the 42-0 loss to Ole Miss, there's still some highlights and some things to look to on Georgia Tech's defense that could cause the Knights problems Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, the week before they had 3 interceptions. They had a forced fumble. So their goal when they go out there is to create turnovers. And, the interesting thing is that their defensive ends have really put a lot of pressure on the quarterback thus far this year. And it's been a case of, getting an arm on the shoulder of the quarterback and an athletic quarterback able to shake loose and, get out of the pocket and make some plays. So they have to wrap up and make sure they make those plays. And, the secondary really has not been tested that much. The Ole Miss did not throw the ball that much. They did a pretty good job against a surprisingly strong Western Carolina offense that took advantage of the transfer portal and had some pretty good athletes out there. But I think the key to Georgia Tech is their linebacker group. If A. Sealy and Charlie Thomas play like they're capable of playing, it could be a good day for the defense.
Right after the Ole Miss game, Lane Kiffin had some comments, I'll paraphrase, essentially saying he stopped throwing the ball because of the hot seat and what was going on the other side of the sideline, obviously referring to Jeff Collins. How did those comments play up at Georgia Tech?
Yeah, they if things weren't bad enough, with what the fans were feeling about Jeff Collins, to hear that, made them feel even worse. And of course, we all know Kiffin's an interesting guy. I mean, they're up, 35-0, and one of his players makes a bad play, and he's bent over agonizing like it's the end of the world, So, I don't think that really that's something he should have said publicly, but he did, and it's not surprising based on who he is.
If this really is it for Coach Collins, what do you guys want to see next? Do you want to go back to the old option offense, or do you want to see something different? Do you have any names in mind of who you want to be the next coach?
I mean, Paul Johnson, I really like Paul a lot, enjoyed covering him, but please, let's not go back to the triple option. I mean, that's why they're in the trouble they're in now, because they tried to go from 10 or 11 years with a triple option and getting back to a spread type of offense, playing from the shotgun, trying to recruit a different type of offensive lineman. They really only had maybe one or two offensive linemen on the entire squad that really translated to what they're doing now. So I think they just need to keep along the same lines as what they're doing now. You hear some silly names out there, Deion Sanders for one. I just can't see Georgia Tech paying Deion Sanders, and money is sort of an issue at Georgia Tech right now. There's a game going on right now between Coastal Carolina and Georgia State, and the Coastal Carolina coach's name has come up quite a bit. So we'll see. They usually keep coaching searches close to the vest, and it'll be even more interesting if Todd Stansbury is in trouble and is not taking part in that, and if the donors really are the ones that are going to be in control of what happens next.
For Georgia Tech to leave Orlando with a victory, what has to happen?
They have to make stops on third down, which is something they haven't been able to do. They have to get in that third down situation where it's third and long instead of third and short, because they have not been able to get any stops on third and short. They have to have, one or two interceptions, I think. Offensively, they have to get the running game going. They have to give Jeff Sims time to throw the ball. And if he can get out there and do his thing, like we saw him do, in the at Mercedes-Benz against North Carolina on national TV last year, where he took over the game and won the game, pretty much single-handedly. I think that would give them a chance, and of course, if they can stay close going into that second half, that's going to make a big difference for the team coming out of the locker room. They're going to have something to play for. So it's really key that they stay close in that first half.
Rod McKenzie with GoJackets.com. We appreciate your insights and for stopping by Sons of UCF Live.
Hey, thanks for having me on, and good luck Saturday.
Thanks much, Rod. All right, prediction time, guys. First one for you, Mike. Boos or cheers for George O'Leary when he comes out for that coin throw? Coin toss.
It's going to be mostly cheers. I don't think the boos are going to – you may hear a couple of knuckleheads booing, but they shouldn't be. I mean, the guy brought us to our first Fiesta Bowl. If it's not for him, we don't have that stadium that they're sitting in on campus. So should be cheers for
I'm not one to bully, despite what Adam's daughter says, but where's George on the show? Aren't you,
I called George. I did call George. I called him. What was it, Adam? Like Tuesday, Monday, or Tuesday?
Tuesday.
He must have wisened up and saved my number and probably saved it as do not answer, because he did not answer. I left a voicemail and he never got back to me. So how'd
that voicemail go? What? Give us a sense of what that voicemail sounded like.
Hey, Coach, how's it going? Good. I don't know. I don't know what I said. I hope
does he have a pre-recorded message, or is it just you have reached?
You have reached 407. You want me to give out his number?
No, probably not.
Is it a 407 number?
The number I have is 407. Now, I haven't tried to call him in the last 2 years since the last time we had him on the show. So unless he's changed
he's not changing his number. He's got no time for that, Mike.
I'm picturing George Costanza and his outgoing answering machine.
It's a 407. 407.
All right. So what's your prediction, Mike? 20-point favorites, the Knights.
Prediction? Pain. We got to kill these guys. I said it on the show, 4 or 5 touchdown minimum, maybe 6, 45-3 I want.
45-3?
That's right. That's 6 touchdowns.
49-13.
49-13. I like when Rod was listing the things that have to go right. It was a long list. They got to do well on third down. They got to establish they got to be the opposite of what they've been for their 1-2 start. I think Knights win this. Right so far, Louisville most with 20 points. I think the Knights hold Georgia Tech under 20 and maybe flirt again with the 40s. I think they end up covering that. And a couple of good Colton Boomer kicks would be nice as well, and give some guys some playing time before that SMU game week out. Some news and notes before we open the mailbag. Congratulations to the Athletics Hall of Famers. They will be inducted into the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame Friday night at the Celeste Hotel on campus. Joe Burnett, you interviewed him, right? You've had him on.
Smoking Joe.
Yeah.
He's been on this show with us too.
Latavius Murray, cheerleading coach Linda Gooch, Mackenzie Otis from softball, and first rower inducted into the Hall of Fame, Christina Sarf. Congratulations to them. Mentioned the SMU game. Watch the weather. There's some storms brewing out there in the Atlantic that could, depending on the model you follow, cause some problems for Florida later in the week. But SMU at UCF Family Weekend sold out. Game time now 3:30. Another hot one out at the Bounce House. And Mike, I'm just going to rattle off, not give you every bowl, but which of these opponents do you like best after 3 weeks bowl projections? Nights against Syracuse, Kansas, Army, or Wake Forest?
Syracuse, Kansas, Army, Wake Forest. Kansas is playing a lot better. Kansas may not be in the same bowl as us. Kansas is looking at a what's it called? New Year's Six bowl. If they keep up the way they're playing. None of those teams excite me.
None of those teams. They should be hosting game day. They sold out their stadium against Duke on Saturday. Men's basketball releases its schedule around the corner. UNC Asheville, Monday, November 7th at the arena. They also welcome into the arena FSU and Miami with November games. Women's basketball, their schedule also released. They open with Winthrop. That one will also be on Monday, November 7th, 6 o'clock. Men's game follows that, a little doubleheader on Monday, November 7th. All right. We'll open up the mailbag now. We got a coach. We got a coach to roll.
We sure do, Chase. We sure do. You want to hear who it is?
Sure.
My name is Kenny Ingram. Let's open that Sons of UCF mailbag.
I love that. All right, exciting. D Miller, 7890. They actually love doing that kind of thing when you ask them to do it because it gets them out of coach speak. Now, at D Miller 7896, would you rather have the 1-for-1 with Washington or the 2-for-1 with UF? The 48-hour Twitter mafia meltdown on Timo this week. Interesting question from D Miller.
I don't love the 2-for-1, but I'd rather play Florida. They're close, recruiting battle, bragging rights. So I'd rather take Florida. I don't love the 2-for-1 though.
Yeah, 3 games against Florida would be a lot of fun. We just saw how it was like at the Gasparilla Bowl. I know a lot of people that went to Florida. It's a lot of trash talking going on there. I don't know anybody that went to Washington. I understand the whole 1-for-1 versus 2-for-1 deal, but give me the Gators 3 times.
I don't like 2-for-1s. I'd rather have the 1-for-1 with Washington. At Ethan of 126, playing Georgia Tech short for technology. Of course, what would each of you do when the inevitable technological apocalypse occurs? How would you survive? Mike, what would you do without the Instagram?
Dude, if I'm the only human and there's all robots, I don't want to live. Just kill me. What the hell am I going to do here?
Okay. I don't want to follow that.
At Spursy Night, what's your confidence level of the team after the FAU game? Higher or lower? About the same. I'm in the I still don't know what we have. I want them obviously to come out of the Georgia Tech game with a win, but I want to see what they do with a talented SMU team. Not too many losses over the last several years at the Bounce House. They've already got that one against Louisville. They can't really lose games at home against the likes of SMU or Cincinnati. So that's what I'm really looking ahead to.
Yeah, I go same. I just don't know what to take from the FAU game. I mean, we've seen the floor and the ceiling now, so I need one more game here to understand consistency. I don't know if Georgia Tech's going to give me enough to know that. That's what concerns me is I don't want to be going into SMU still with a bunch of question marks.
Well, it's higher after the FAU game. It all depends on how this game goes, So it's a week-to-week business around here.
A week-to-week business. At Nitro's Gus Bus, does Gus keep the tempo that works so well against FAU, or does he slow it down in homage of George O'Leary? I think there's going to be a lot of running at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, their rush defense is not strong. Ole Miss gashed them for a bunch of rushing yards. I suspect Gus will do the same thing. I'm curious, though, if I felt like Trace, he did a couple of things different from a play call perspective. I think we saw our first slant pass in a couple of years. It was completed, by the way. We saw a creative play design with Alec Holler lined up as a left tackle that got a big gain. So curious to see if Gus can continue to evolve the playbook a little bit. We used to bag on Heupel for like 3 plays, but I feel like Gus has like 4 or 5. He opened it up a little bit against FAU. I'd love to see more against Georgia Tech.
Little flea flicker at the beginning of the game last week too. That was nice. And if you watch the night flicks this week, you saw how aggravated he was, how we have to run the ball. And I think that's what we're going to see a big dose of this week.
I loved the night flicks this week. Do you think we should have them when they lose, though? I like how it was episode 2, and I'm like, 3 games in. I'd like to see some of the anguish. I'd like to hear the locker room speech from Coach Malzahn after a loss. Saving those. By the way, speaking of Heupel versus Florida, who are you rooting for?
Heupel.
Probably Heupel, yeah.
Definitely Heupel. I hate Florida so much. I don't ever want to see those guys win, except last week, I guess, when they played the Cows. Even then, I wasn't so sure, but I guess that was the only time.
At Patrick Nurse, FTW, what single player's injury absence will impact the Knights the most this week going into Saturday's game? Again, we still don't know Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste's status and whether he'll be back. I think if it's close and they don't think they need him, they hold him for SMU.
Yeah, I think it's JJB. I think the rumors were it could be a multi-week injury. I agree with you, Trace. Hold them against Georgia Tech here. I thought Jason Johnson played well. We saw Brandon Jennings play a little bit. We saw Walter Yates III play pretty well. So I say hold JJB if he's not ready.
I'm more interested in the guys that are coming back. Kobe Hudson, 0 catches week 1, didn't play the last 2 weeks. I know probably not an injury, but he should be back on the field this week. What do we get out of this kid?
At Bonk's Realm, do you think we'll eventually see a soft cap on the runs for JRP with more touches for the running backs? I don't know. Gus doesn't seem particularly bothered by how much he's flying around the field.
I looked this up. In 2013, Nick Marshall, his quarterback at Auburn, averaged 13 runs a game. JRP slightly ahead of that. It probably comes back to the mean a little bit. Again, we've had some blowout games where we ran a lot of plays, so that probably gets closer. That still feels like a lot, though. I think we have such a stable at running backs. But the reality is if you're playing, you're doing just the math there, right? The quarterback becoming a rusher puts additional pressure on the defense. So I think Gus is always trying to exploit the mismatch.
Not all of these are designed runs. I mean, maybe a handful of them are, and some of them, nobody's open or he can't find the guy in time and he takes off on his own. So you're still going to see a lot of this during the season.
At Spread Football, wanted to know, talking about tight ends, like how the team got Alec Holler involved, a shot to Gamble. Interesting to see how they get them more involved in the season. Where are we at on the over-under? I think you guys talked about it on the show Monday. What was the over-under? 27.5?
I think it's 27.5. I have too many numbers floating around. They have 9 on the season thus far. So
good pace so far. Huh? It's a good pace.
Good pace. They're on pace right now. 4 for Gamble and Holler, 1 for Zach Marshall.
I love how Holler came up, and I think as we talked about earlier with Chris, I'm surprised we've not seen Kamor Gamble shine a little bit more. I thought of the two of them, we might see him do a little bit more than Alec, but Alec really stepped up last week.
Gamble had a nice game the first week, right? He had that diving touchdown, and it's still only been 3 games, guys. So let's see, 9 games to go.
At Night Fan 94, goal line stand after the INT that ended with a blocked field goal. Awesome. What are your rankings on top 5 goal line stands in UCF history? I did not do homework for this. People asking me for a top 5. Mike, where are you at?
5. It's hard to come up with 5 off the top of my head. The one that really sticks out to me is 2013 at home against Houston. Those guys were right there at the goal line, and we stuffed them. It's not a goal line stand, but Brandon Alexander diving at the goal line, making a big play. I can't think of too many goal line stands just off the top of my head.
That was a huge one, that play. This could be a play we look back on this season as being, really a tone setter. And I just like the hustle that goes on with, the plays. It's Al Collar coming in on this. We talked about John Rice Plumlee chasing down the South Carolina State defender. I like seeing guys show effort like that. At Charge on Chris, the tough question, crunchy or creamy on the peanut butter?
Neither.
You're anti-peanut butter?
Anti-peanut butter.
Whoa. Allergy?
Taste.
Whoa. All right.
I like all kinds of peanut butter, but you know what? Here at the house, I guess we've been going with almond butter for the last few years. My wife tries to keep it a little healthier around here. I like that too. Crunchy, smooth, whatever. I take it all.
Have the kids had real peanut butter? Do they know the difference with the almond butter?
I don't know. I mean, they've had Reese's Pieces. I mean, that's regular peanut butter, yeah.
Put me down for creamy. At Golden Knight _2. Have we seen the last of Obarski, Osteen, perhaps Keene? Unless something goes south with the kickers, I think certainly.
Trace, I was told at the press conference, you asked the question. I was told we'll see Andrew Osteen again. So I guess we're going to do this 2-punt thing. You know, it's kind of like soccer where you don't know who's going to take the kick. We're going to bring both back there. You don't know where the snap's going. I don't know. I heard we're going to see both.
Did Gus seem annoyed with that question, by the way? He didn't really like it very much. I mean, hey, he pulled Osteen. You know, I thought it deserved a question. Why did you pull him? And we understood on Obarski. Mike, what about you? Seen the last of these three guys?
Most likely. Maybe not Keene. I mean, if there's still an injury to JRP, it's very early in the year. I could see him coming in and be the first one off the bench if we need him for the rest of the year.
At UCF, what do the Suns imagine the coaches said to Obarski when they informed the senior kicker he was finally being benched? I hope and I know that it was handled professionally and just, hey, got to make a change, got to mix things up, right? I mean, what else can you say? He knows on that missed 32-yarder.
Listen, I'm not the son of UCF you want to hear the answer from. I'll cede my time to Mike on this.
Yeah, I mean, just get the hell out of here. That's what I would have said to him.
Pack
your bags and get the hell out.
He's a college kid. Let's be nice. Robert, 2 letters, 2 words. Now it's obvious Mike won't see the field. Mikey Keene won't see the field. Would you have liked to see Tommy come in earlier against FAU? Yeah.
No,
I'd like
actually,
to see him get some more meaningful plays, actually.
I say no, Trace, because I think we need reps for JRP. I keep hearing all the time that JRP hasn't played quarterback in 2 years. If we can steal 5, 6, 7 reps with the first team, get them comfortable against FAU, I say we do it.
Yeah, I like being able to put that 40 spot up. I mean, it was only 33 I wasn't too happy with. I even told the wife and kids, if we score again here, then we can leave and beat the rain. And we did. And then I didn't even see Tommy come in the game, to be honest.
At Laird WD2, what's going on with Bowser? Too much yoga. Maybe they're just holding him back. He's going to get stronger. But I think maybe it was you, Mike, who said on the pod this week, it's a guy that he has to keep moving and keep running to get stronger through the game, and he doesn't ever seem to get going.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten in a rhythm during any game yet. Like I said, he's better the last 5 carries of the game than he is the first 5. So you just got to keep beating him. And I think maybe Gus is kind of pacing himself for conference play. We got a lot of big games coming up. The SMU game, the Cincinnati game, East Carolina on the road. We may see a big, heavy dose of Bowser.
At Fit to the Max 24, 4C changes at running back, and at J Froelich 15 asking, are we going to see more from the depth in the running back room? I would say through 3 games, I'm surprised we've not seen Mark Anthony Richards, but happy that we saw finally RJ Harvey coming back after injury last season.
I hope so. I think a lot of it ends on the offensive line, how the line is playing. I mean, I think we have the advantage of rolling through JRP, Bowser, Johnny, RJ Harvey, right? And that's a lot of running backs, a lot of fresh legs to pound defenses when we have to. But if the line can't hold up or block or whatnot, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I hope we see more running backs, because I think that means our line is continuing to get better in the running game.
I missed it. Aaron Judge is not even up. I just was scrolling through the comments over here and I wasn't paying attention.
At UCF Knight _115, from what we've seen from the linebackers, who are you most pleasantly surprised at? Jason Johnson. I like how he's gotten into the mix.
Yeah, he got my category this week. I think Jason Johnson, he wasn't the name we were talking about. We were talking about the 2 transfers from Maryland and Kansas State, but he's clearly been the most consistent linebacker outside of JJB.
Walter Yates III has had a nice start to the season, too.
At Brian W. Peterson, thanks, by the way, for spending so much time with us, Brian, at the Suns tailgate down in real South Florida. Asking about the AAC, looking vulnerable. How do you feel about UCF's AAC championship chances? Adam, you asked that of Chris. Again, I think it's still early, but Houston has certainly not looked like everybody thought they would. They've embarrassed the AAC with their play against the Big 12. But UCF's still going to have SMU and Cincinnati at home. That's what it's going to come down to, right? I mean, they've got the chances that they control their destiny. I do think they're in a bit better position than I would have thought a couple of weeks ago.
I'm going to go full coach speak and just say we have to focus on us. Like, I know we want to look at Cincinnati and Houston and SMU, but right now I think we have to focus on how we're playing, not worry about the rest of the conference at this point. To your point, we have games in front of us against these teams. We can win those games. So I'm going to go full coach speak. We got to focus on it. I'm worried about the guys in the locker room, Chase.
The schedule doesn't look as easy as I thought it did before the season started. Cincinnati is looking tough. SMU is pretty good. The road games are scaring me. The East Carolina game I'm a little worried about. And now even Tulane. Tulane is the only team left in this conference without a loss.
We got an Instagram question this week, which is nice. Send questions to us there as well at ILANB. Talking about all this the coaching moves, but you're not hearing Gus Malzahn's name mentioned. I think you're going to start hearing T-Will's name mentioned as time moves along this season. How about that for the stability and focus on the season at hand? Again, I think 3 weeks, only a couple of coaches let go. Maybe as the team progresses and does well, hopefully, you'll hear Malzahn's name pop up again.
Yeah, you said it, Trace. It's T-Will's name. If you saw that Netflix, I mean, I went outside and body slammed my neighbor. I was so excited. I mean, T-Will just had me fired up watching that. So that's the name I'm watching. Not that Gus can or won't maybe get a call or two, but T-Will I think would be a big loss for us.
Well, don't get too attached to him. I mean, he's a defensive coordinator.
Mike.
That's the way it goes. Those guys get jobs as head coaches. That's the cycle of coaching. He's going to be here maybe another year after this. And that means he's doing a good job. That means he's good. You don't want nobody's going to take him if he sucks, right? So that's just the way it goes.
See, Adam was saying the same thing about Brent Key just a couple of seasons ago. So,
yes, guilty.
Great with the comments on social media. Must follow at Dolly_drama. Who will have a second consecutive perfect football doubleheader, college football NFL weekend? Adam's Dallas Cowboys travel to the Meadowlands Monday night against Mike's surging New York Football Giants. Guys, mano a mano here. Who's the winner? Giants off to a good start, Mike.
Big Blue is back, baby. We're back. 17-0. 17-0 we're going. And you know how I like to predict perfect seasons. We're looking good. Coach Dayball is showing some balls. This is a new era in Giants football. I'm confident going into Monday.
Adam, confidence level? Cooper Rush. 200.
I'm confident for Mike going into Monday. Our left tackle is from Tulsa, and our quarterback's name is Cooper Rush, and our running back is more concerned with his abs. So I'm not feeling real good.
All right, Prescott getting a little action on the field. Maybe Jerry Jones is right, and he'll be back sooner than people think.
I mean, at this point, just sit him. Let's get a draft pick. I don't know if we have a draft pick. I think we traded him for a receiver someplace.
And we end with a friend of the show, bit of a pot stirrer at Eric Lopez Elo. He wants to address the elephant in the room, perhaps the cow in the room. JP Gilbert, cow of the week on the Suns pod. No show Saturday for the tailgate party. Not entirely sure he was even at the game. Rumors he left early. Mike, hot seat, right? Hot seat.
Yeah, he's definitely on the hot seat. I let him know about it this past week. He's got to make up for this somehow. I said he's got to meet me at a watch party some point this year. You know,
there's make it up to you. How's he making it up to Adam and I?
I don't know. You guys come up with your own thing. There's a couple other people here in the chat that were supposed to be at this tailgate.
Oh, Mike's not done. Oh boy.
That I don't either. I was too drunk to remember that they showed up, or I don't think they showed up. But Dolly Drama, I'm looking at you, sir.
Yeah, I remember we were supposed to meet Dolly. It was at the Louisville tailgate, wasn't he?
That's right.
Come by that one.
That's right. He did not show up. So there's only room for one cow a week. JP got it this week because he's the most vocal. But I'd like to see some of you guys, other guys out there too. Still got 9 games to go, so you never know.
This is the official. I mean, the agenda has jumped the shark, right? I mean, that's it. That's it. With all this talk of Citronauts, and he's going to go after Coach Dawkins, and it's right. He jumped the shark with all of this.
If anybody's taking JP Gilbert seriously, I think that's their own problem.
All right, you guys. It was good to have Chris from the Daytona Beach News Journal in. Get to know him a little bit more on the Knights beat, and of course, Rod, who joined us to talk about Georgia Tech. Let's get a big win. Go 3-1 in the non-conference slate, and then watch the Tropics and gear up for SMU. But you got to get out Saturday. Mike, what's the Judge home run situation? How many at-bats does he have?
He has not hit one tonight. He walked his first 2 times up. He struck out the 3rd time. It's a quick-moving game. They're going to the bottom of the 6th. He's probably got another 1, maybe 2 at-bats left.
What is this comment? 5'10". 5'10", don't the rest of your Twitter.
Yeah, Falk. It's Falk, Trace.
Yeah. I don't want to say that too fast. All right, guys. For Adam and Mike, I'm Trey Strelko. Go Knights, charge on. Which player are we ending with, Adam?
One of my favorites. This is probably my favorite of the endings.
Trace is bullying me.
My goodness, with this again.